Lesson 5. Set and natural numbers. Remember that natural numbers are the counting numbers. The first one that you learn, and they start with 1, 2, 3. You use your fingers to count those, and they keep going forever. The whole numbers is when we include 0. So it's 0 and all the natural numbers. Now, when you learn about the negative numbers, that's when we learn about integers. So integers also start on infinite. Then we have like -3, -2, -1, the opposite of the natural numbers, and 0. Now, when we include all of those that we already talked about, plus decimals and fractions, we get the rationals. Now, decimals that have certain characteristics, like repeating decimals or decimals that end. For example, like 1.03 repeating, that is a rational, or also something like 0.5, that is a rational. We can change both of those to a fraction. So put here also fractions. There are some decimals that are irrational, and we will talk about that later. Now remember that the natural are part of the whole numbers are part of the integers are part of the rationals, and rationals are part of the real numbers. Now let's review absolute value. Absolute value is the distance between 0 and any number, and for that reason, since it's a distance, it's always positive. The notation for the absolute value is those two long lines and the number inside. So in this case, it's the absolute value of 0, and since 0 does not have a sign, it's not positive or negative, we just put the 0. Now, if we have the absolute value of -3, the answer is going to be 3. It's always positive. The absolute value of 7 is going to be 7. Notice that we're not changing the sign. We're just always giving a positive answer. The absolute value of 51 hundredths is 51 hundredths. The absolute value of -1/2 is +1/2. And then we have these kind of exercises where we have an operation inside. So what we do is first find the answer of that. So 11 minus 2 is 9, and the absolute value of 9 is 9. For the next one, we'll do the same. -8 plus 3 is -5, and the absolute value of -5 is 5. And finally, in this case, we have a negative in front of the absolute value signs. So 20 minus 2 is 18. If we find the absolute value of 18 is 18, but we have a negative in front, so the answer in this case is going to be -18 because of this negative here. Now you might be trying to remember what are the rules for adding sign numbers, so I have them here for you. Remember that if you have the same sign, then what we have to do is add them and keep the sign. So for example, if I have 3 plus 7, I add them and keep the sign. That's 10. If I have a -10 plus a -2, they're both negatives, so we add them and keep the sign. That's -12. Now what gets confusing is whenever we have something like this, for example. In that case, what you have to remember is that both of them are negative. Now you can put in your mind a little positive here, and so there you see that is -5 plus -8. But even if you don't put it, all you have to do is remember that those two are negatives. So we add them and keep the sign. So it's -13. Now the second rule is what happens if we have different signs. Well, what we have to do is subtract and then choose the sign of the biggest number. 10 minus 15. We have a +10 and a -15. So we're going to subtract 15 minus 10, which is 5. And then we're going to choose the sign of the biggest number. In this case, it's a negative because 15 is bigger than 10. And the answer is -5. Let's do another example. In this case, we have -3 plus 10. Again, it's a positive and a negative. So we subtract 10 minus 3, that is 7. And the sign of the biggest number is positive, so our answer is positive. Now that's the same as if I write it like this, 12 minus 3. Notice Then in this case, we have a positive and a negative. Positive 12, negative 3. So we subtract, which is 9, and the sign is the positive. And that's what we've been doing in elementary. We just have to think about it differently now, but it's the same thing. Let's look at some examples. Again, 3 minus 5. We have a positive 3 and a negative 5. And so in this case, we subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2, and we choose the sign of the biggest number. Same thing on the next one, negative 5 plus 1. A positive and a negative. So we subtract. 5 minus 1 is 4, and we choose the sign of the biggest number, which is negative 5. Now we have 2 minus 1. We have a positive 2 and a negative 1. So we subtract. The answer is 1, and the sign of the biggest number is a positive because 2 is positive. In this other one, we have minus 2 minus 1. Both of them are negative, so it's the first rule, the same sign. So we add them, which is 3, and we keep the sign, negative 3. Remember, with all of this, you can think about them like money. For example, in the first one, you have $3 and then you spend $5. Well, you are owing $2. Or in the second example, let's say you owe your mom $5 and you pay her 1. So now you only owe her 4. So that's kind of like the same idea. In this last example we did, let's say you owe your mom $2 and then you ask her for another dollar. Now you owe her $3. In this last example, though we have several numbers, what we want to do is first use the first rule. So we're going to add the same sign. So we have 3 and 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. And then we're going to add the negative 4 and negative 1. That's negative 5. And now that we added all the positives and all the negatives, now we're going to use the second rule. And the second rule about different signs is that we subtract them. 8 minus 5 is 3. And choose the sign of the biggest. In this case, positive because 8 is positive. And that's it. Okay, very simple lesson. Go do your practice and I'll see you in the next video.